All right, you frustrated radio repairman, listen up. All right, what you're looking at now is some eye candy, and that's the inside of the first IF. Let's see if this is in focus. Here's the can. It's got four little tiny bolts on the top, and then the can comes up off this unit, and here, I don't know if it's in the frame. Here's the lead that went to the grid of the first IF tube. Right? Now, the caps that are probably bad are these two, or they're leaky. And this IF is real low frequency. It's not 455. So you expect the coil to be really large, which it is. And it most likely has one winding on top of the other because it's the first IF and you're down low frequency. You want to make sure you can transfer the signal from one winding to another. And then you amplify. Now the next IF, I don't know if I'll show you it, but the next IF, it should be two separate coils. I think it is. You look at the inside, but I want to get an idea of what I'm up against, and it does look like there's terminals here. And all I need to do is to be able to unsolder one side of the capacitor. And using my homemade leakage tester, I can test these two capacitors, and I do think I can get this one off. These terminals are, you know, Primitive Pete or Fred Flintstone. They're not little. But I just want to show you the inside. And you really, without having a spec of what signal you put in and how much you should get out of the other side, you're left with having to check these out. Now, I can check them for leakage. And these two are the same part number, but this is a different part number, and it's not listed in the parts list. And none of them in the parts list have a value. So it's a little iffy, but what I'm going to do now is, now that I know I can take the top off very easily, and that's tomorrow to test these and possibly order some. These will probably be 500 picofarads, just based on what I've gone through in the past. They're not going to be 120s. Everybody, 120 is the standard value. Just stick 120 in there. If you ever watched earlier Shango's, he goes in and he puts a variable capacitor in here, and then he adjusts it, and then he puts a frequency. He has a really good frequency generator, and then he takes the capacitors out, puts them on a good cap checker, and then he measures them, and it's never 120. And he kind of makes fun of the people. Just stick 120 in there. A lot of cases, if you just have one IF can go in a radio, and the capacitor is shorted, you take the cap out. The IF can will work, but not that good. Now, if you add more capacitance in, the IF can will work better, even if you can't get a peak. And that's what a lot of people do. They shotgun stuff, and it works. It gets stations right. Meanwhile, the guy that really repairs it, he gets the schematic, or he tries to figure out what the value of the capacitor is to fix it correctly. Now, you notice things are glistening here. That same spray is on these. Now, back in, that would be 1972, a lot of our circuit boards, avionics, amplifier boards for wing sweep units and stuff like that, after they were done calibrating it all, they would spray it with this clear, it was a can of spray lacquer. And when you hit it with the soldering iron on the terminal, if you put the soldering iron on the terminal that was sprayed with this lacquer, it would vaporize. It was a very thin lacquer, but it's to prevent moisture damage. Because if you get moisture sometimes in something, the current will go across the moisture if it's high enough voltage, and the electrons or the molecules of the metal will migrate across the bridge of conductive water, whatever the moisture is, and then it like plates it, and then it gets worse and worse and worse, and then at some point the circuit board starts to burn, and then the circuit board becomes conductive, and under certain circumstances they try to prevent that, and they also prevent just say an aircraft loses its windshield or something like that. A lot of instruments are sealed and they're evacuated and filled with nitrogen. I used to do all that work, that craziness. And that was also just, emergency. They would sit there and they think about, well, how can we prevent this? How can we prevent that? And that's what a lot of this stuff is. Now, in this case, you got to remember this. This is in a Jeep on the ground. So this might be for, on a heavy rain, the Jeep's going through puddles, the water's splashing up. It might be going inside on the radio. So they did a little extra on this IF cam, which makes my life more miserable. And the fact that they want you to just change this IF cam. They don't want you to go in and change the values. That's how it is. It was the same with the Hellcrafters SX42. Those IF cans were only available for a short time. And same with these. If you buy these or the Hellcrafters SX42, they've been sitting on the shelf just as long, and the capacitors go bad. Remember, I showed you capacitors that were basically they just go bad sitting there. The silver mica, I cut one open. I show you. What happens is the silver, when the day they sealed it, some moisture got in there, and from the room temperature and the moisture in the room, and then over 70-something years, the silver plating of the plates starts to grow whiskers. Some metals in there grow whiskers. What the hell did Shango call them? I forgot my metal. Well, anyway, the mica, the silver mica, what happens, the silver creates an oxide, black stuff, and then it eventually starts shorting the capacitor out or making it leaky, and then you lose gain. The IF can will still operate because at this frequency, this coil is just having a primary and a secondary. That's basically enough. But if you want to tune it, you need these capacitors. All right, these get it close, and then there is out here. I don't know if I'm in the camera. Oh, my neck is all stiff. Out here, all right, well, let me move the camera. Right here, see if I'm in the frame. I'm stiffening up here. Right here, there is an adjustment. You can tune this. But both windings, one winding's on top of the other one. And there's a slug. This is a ferrite slug inside that coil. I'm trying to show you a little bit more than other people show you. Now, if you watch Shango, he takes IF cans apart because he's a real repairman. Sometimes I don't always agree with him politically because I'm more liberal than he is. But repair-wise, he has areas that I never went into, or I went into and I didn't like it. Repair and television sets. He seems to like that. I never liked it. He does have a lot of parts on hand. When I used to do it, on a budget. Oh, there is a capacitor hiding under here. I just tilted off to the side. There's a cap here. So there's 4 capacitors in here, and one of them could be bad. Oh, we're going to have fun. But I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed the eye candy there. The little what I'm actually working on. And, I try to keep you up to date. But I would not suggest this radio as a first-time radio. There was a guy this morning, I think it was this morning, he asked me if I had documentation that showed the voltages on all the terminal strips. And that's not how schematics work. They show you the voltage at each pin of a tube, and then you have to localize the problem, and then maybe check the caps in that area, and it could be a resistor that's changed value. It could also be the stage before that is really bad. See, having voltages, and you got to know what the range you should expect to see. And if you go on the conferences, a lot of people say, well, is 130 good enough? And you can tell they don't know how to troubleshoot. And they're troubleshooting anything and everything. And, you know, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, sometimes I know what's wrong with the radio, and the person's on the other side of the radio. But that's because they don't know what they're doing. But I try to, you know, show you what and where and how, but you have to bring something to the table. You know, I told you should start with a cheap kitchen radio, and then you go on to one of those cheap command radios, build yourself a power supply. You should not be on one of these. It's that simple. This is electro, mechanical, and you got to know what to expect, how to get the parts out, how to be able to test them, because this module is not made to be repaired. So even the guys that worked on these during World War II, they did not worry about these 4 capacitors. They just said it's bad. They grab one from the shelf, they put it in, they do an alignment, it's done. Right? In my case, I don't have a choice. And this IF can is different on this radio than it is on the BC 312. The 312 is the high frequency band. This is the lower frequency band. I told you, long wave and AM broadcast band. And it doesn't do the new AM broadcast band at the top. It goes up to 1500. It doesn't go to 1700. I think that's it. All right, that's it.